Okay, in this video, I wanted to discuss the American novel, The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. So, this novel to start is the true essence of the Roaring Twenties. In fact, Fitzgerald coined the term the Jazz Age. So, this novel was created and designed to show the problems of the Roaring Twenties, such as that the rich always have these lavish parties and it ends up that they have consequences that they don't realize. So this also talks about new morality, as in women became flappers and had less authoritative figures around them. They had more social freedom. But F. Scott Fitzgerald starts by stating that he's like his character Nick Carraway is this objective, not going to make judgments kind of person in order to give us the full view of the Roaring Twenties at that time. So Nick Carraway is our first character that we learn about, and Nick goes into the bond business and he's involved with witnessing all these acts that go on. Then we have Daisy Buchanan, who is a cousin of Nick. Daisy is married to Tom Buchanan, and Daisy is what they would call a material girl. All she wants is money. In fact, towards the end, they said that her voice was filled with money. So over and over we get this idea that Daisy wants money. She's a material girl, but from Tom we can see the declination of morality because Tom has a mistress, and this mistress is named Myrtle Wilson, who is married to a man named George Wilson. Now, Myrtle is the mistress of Tom Buchanan, and it shows that Tom is kind of cheating on Daisy, and he doesn't really care about it. It's this idea that all these old rich can do this, and they're just gonna keep cheating on whoever they want, which is like one of the symbols from Gatsby's parties is that at, at all these rich parties, people accuse each other of flirting, all these other things, and a lot of it happens consequentially of the actions that they took. So Tom Buchanan is basically a bully of the series and of the story that Nick Carraway describes as suffering from anticlimax, which is kind of a big insult to Tom, and he never actually told Tom it, but it's an insult. And Tom is often described as being such a bully, a boisterous, bombastic type of hulking brute that they describe. And then we have, when we go into the mistress area, we have Myrtle Wilson, and Myrtle Wilson is one of the characters that she is from the Valley of Ashes area. The Valley of Ashes is a symbol in the story that is the dumping ground for all that the rich do. It's all the garbage, all the poor people that live there, and dreams die there. The dream of social mobility is the American dream that they're trying to achieve. They want to be these rich. They want to gain that kind of power, but they can't because it dies there. The Valley of Ashes is like an endless place that they're stuck in. So George Wilson and Myrtle Wilson both live in the Valley of Ashes, and we see the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg. And Dr. T.J. Eckelberg represents God as a figure and is watching over all these atrocities as they happen. All these atrocities happen mostly under the eyes of T.J. Eckelberg. And T.J. Eckelberg is just watching over and over. And Fitzgerald describes him as brooding, as in he's hovering over, watching. So he's that sort of figure that when that God is watching over and seeing all this happen without any action being done to them. So then George Wilson, he's described as some kind of pale figure, and his the essence of him himself really captures the poor people. He's the representative for the poor people in the Valley of Ashes and throughout the story. He parallels as such with the declination of the American dream, that it cannot always be achieved, that America was founded upon this social mobility, this freedom, but then you don't have it. So it also explains the declination of morality with women as well, because Myrtle's cheating on George, and Myrtle wants the money that her boyfriend Tom can give her, and she pretends she's rich. In chapter 2, when they all have this sort of party gathering, they all pretend that they're rich, besides Nick, and they're all pretending. And Mr. McNee, he's a photographer type artsy person that's feminine in such a way, and Miss McNee is described as handsome. Those characters aren't as important, but they're just important to note. And then we see the green light also, but at the end of chapter 1, as Nick drives home, he's disgusted at what happened. And the question is, why is he disgusted? He's disgusted at the morality, that what's going on is that Daisy knows that Tom has a mistress, and she's not doing anything. She's sticking with Tom because all she wants is the money. So he's kind of disgusted at that kind of relationship. We also meet Jordan Baker, who's this cynical kind of boyish woman who represents the ideal flapper of the age. She is a golfer. She cheated in a golf tournament, and she's a well-known liar. She tends to go to Gatsby's parties as well. So Jay Gatsby, who acquired his wealth by some probably illegal means, he gets calls from Chicago often. Chicago in the Roaring Twenties is known as the place famous for crime and bootlegging. So most likely that's what he did to achieve his wealth. But he was in the war too, World War One, and he also wanted Daisy even before it, and they were supposed to be married and they were supposed to be together, but he went off to the war and everything, and it changed. So then she married Tom, and Daisy wasn't so thrilled about marrying Tom. She kind of wanted someone who was of old money. And the description of East Egg and West Egg kind of describes the social division between old money and new money, because Gatsby lives in one area and he's new money. He rose through other means, and old money is that they've had the traditional money for a long time, and that's basically what that is. And Gatsby represents this dreamer. He's the American dreamer, that he's always looking toward that green light at the end of the dock, and what he's striving for is to get Daisy, and he wants to reach over to the old money. He wants to achieve the American dream, but he doesn't obtain it, and Gatsby keeps trying and trying, and even Nick says that you can't redo the past, and Gatsby won't listen because he focuses on this single dream of obtaining Daisy. And Tom is involved too, and Tom knows this as well, that Daisy likes Gatsby, and Tom watches it happen as well. Eventually, we meet Wolfsheim, who is one of Gatsby's associates, and his cufflinks are made of human molars, and it kind of shows that what do you have to do in order to rise, and it's gangster. It's sort of representation of a gangster lifestyle, that you had to rise through that in order to get rich and all that. We have Owl Eyes as well, who dies in a somewhat car crash at the end of chapter one of the chapters, and he doesn't believe that Gatsby's books are real. We have all that sort of thing. And eventually we see as well that Gatsby is very nervous to meet Daisy, And even when he meets her, all this stuff happens. Stuff, I mean, the novel really picks up because Myrtle Wilson gets hit by a car, and nobody knows who it was, but they know it was Gatsby's yellow car. Yellow is also an important symbol because everything that Gatsby is described as is yellow, which is kind of like a money, glory representation of wealth. So that's what that. And it was really Daisy who ran Myrtle over, although they don't exactly state it. And it was George Wilson that knew that Myrtle was cheating, so he didn't want to deal with it. And Gatsby never drinks, by the way, and he never has used his pool until the last day of summer when he is shot by George Wilson. And then George Wilson shoots himself, and that's the declination of the American dream. And Tom is still living, and Nick is still living with all of this. And also that throughout the novel, we see some sort of parallel between Gatsby's parties, the rich, lavish lifestyle, and the Valley of Ashes. That the Valley of Ashes is always going to be this place of garbage that the rich throw away, and it's always the rich that keep doing it. So it's basically declination of morality, the desire to acquire wealth, the American dream that everyone wants to achieve. And Gatsby is that one dreamer that everyone kind of looked up to, and it was disappointing to see his death in such a fashion that all he tried to do was gain Daisy, and all he tried. But ultimately, it goes to show that Fitzgerald is trying to show a connection that the American dream is not always attainable, and that it even parallels his own life because his wife, Zelda, he had to really try to get rich in order to be with her. So it kind of paralleled his life, and he's basically making a statement about that, and the declination of morality and everything that's going on is some sort of consequence. Because Fitzgerald believes that the rich do not know of their actions, that it causes such consequence. So that's basically the analysis of The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.